think is useful is the statement I sent you like November 3rd.
Yeah. Do you have it in front of you, or do you want me to
Yeah,
send it
yeah,
back?
I do. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
I think you have about
basically.
like I think 1 to 3 minutes is a good time, and I think I read
Okay.
it in about two, so that's seems just about
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
So then what we'll do at the end, I'll quickly look at it to make sure it looks okay, and then that'll be done. So it might be just 2 minutes of your time. If we have to re-record it, I'll let you know right afterwards.
Okay. Okay. So just go ahead and just basically read that mostly verbatim, but yeah.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, don't. I mean, it should feel a little more conversational. Although so if you change it a little bit, don't worry about that part. But if for whatever reason, as you read it, it's like, oh, I gotta start over, just go ahead and stop and start over. Don't, because I'm recording the whole sequence, and I'll pick out the one that was
Okay. Okay. Sure. Sounds good. All right. I'll go ahead. And the focus is the worldwide telescope, right? That's the thing you want to emphasize,
yes.
right? Okay. Okay. So I utilize the capabilities of the Worldwide Telescope as a part of the video abstract for my recently published paper in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. And this is a paper that reported the first discovery of a new object with the next generation of dedicated exoplanet and planet-forming disk imaging instruments, so-called extreme adaptive optics. And WWT played in a very important role, I think, in communicating our science results. Specifically, I helped it make my publication far more accessible and conveyed information far better through images and video, than I could probably communicate through words. The video utilized began with a simulation of the orbits of the solar system planets, coinciding with our team's effort to cast our discovery with sort of the general context of the solar system's architecture. And really the impressive aspect of the video, above all else, was how it visually transitioned from this context to the specific target of our paper. This is a star called HD 115600. And it showed an all-sky map of the region surrounding the star, zoomed in to focus just on the star, and then superimposed our discovery image of this star surrounded by this beautiful Kuiper Belt-like debris ring. I actually think that besides the benefits of this capability to professional astronomers trying to read the paper and disseminating scientific information, I think the video in which the Worldwide Telescope makes a key contribution, the way in which it does this, is how it communicates and makes accessible science results to the general public. And so research field jargon is hard to communicate sometimes. And in many cases, fundamentally, videos and images do far, far better. Thus, I think the Worldwide Telescope serves as an important tool to be able to bridge the divide between professional astronomers and the general public interested in astronomy.
Okay, that was great. I'm going to ask you maybe to read it one more time. The only thing I saw was your hands were, although it's great to be active, they were kind of
a little bit spastic.
Yeah, well, they were either, it's great when they're everywhere, but they were just seeing the kind of tops of them, so it was sort of like, like that as far as I was seeing it. So
yeah, I'll tone it down.
Keep your hands out of the frame, because actually, as you're saying it, what I might try to do if we have time is actually in a corner have your video abstract running, so as you're saying things, it would be on top of it. So I'd want to also not be having motion competing with that. So
right. That makes sense.
But the words are great, and the way you said it's perfect. Just like I said, just start whenever you feel okay, and just do the same thing, but keep your hands out of the camera.
Okay. So I utilized the capabilities of the Worldwide Telescope as a part of the video abstract for my recently published paper in the Astrophysical Journal Letters, entitled Direct Imaging and Spectroscopy, the Young Extrasolar Kuiper Belt in the Nearest OB Association, which reports the first discovery of a new object with the next generation of dedicated extrasolar planet and planet-forming disk imaging instruments, so-called extreme adaptive optics. What the Worldwide Telescope did is it really helped make my publication far more accessible and conveyed information far better through images and video than I could communicate through words. The video utilized with WWT began with a simulation of the orbits of the solar system planets, coinciding with our team's effort to cast our discovery within the general context of the solar system's architecture. The really impressive aspect of the video, above all else, I think, is how it visually transitioned from this context to the specific target of our paper, a star called HD 115600, showing an all-sky map of the region surrounding this star, zooming in to focus on just the star, and then superimposing our image of the HD 115600 debris ring on top of the zoomed-in region that WWT was able to depict. Besides being of benefit to professional astronomers reading the paper and trying to understand and then disseminate science results, I think the video in which WWT makes a key contribution, or at least the way in which it makes a really key contribution, is how it communicates and makes accessible science results to the general public. Research field jargon is hard to communicate, and sometimes it's just fundamentally better to have videos and images communicate the results you're trying to convey. I think the Worldwide Telescope serves as an important tool to bridge the divide between professional astronomers and the general public interested in astronomy.
Okay, that was great. I think that's perfect. So I think that's all we need. I said I may, if I have time, I'll try to. I think putting a little in a corner showing the video abstract running while you're talking about it would be powerful to know, because most people have seen it beforehand. But I think that's exactly what we need to get that kind of short, succinct. This is how I use it. It bridges between research and the public. That's exactly what we wanted. So great.
That was great.
Okay, and I'll let you know how the vote goes, because if it goes well, then hopefully this is more. We do more of this, and then if you need help or want to do more in the future, I'd love to.
Oh, sure. So wait, so there's a vote to yeah. What's
Oh yeah. So what's happening is so right now Worldwide Telescope was funded through Microsoft originally for about 8 years of its existence since it got started there, and then Microsoft about a year ago decided to turn to open source it, to basically stop supporting it. And we're looking at the AAS as an organization to basically be the organization that kind of supports a couple key staff through Worldwide Telescope, and then via getting grants from NSF and NASA and things like that to bring the resources together. So the council's got to vote tomorrow on essentially seed funding at the level of a few $100,000 over 3 years, people to get up to, basically do grant writing to get resources in and be an organization to take in the grants and stuff like that. Plus there's other things that, like foundations, we know foundations want to support us in some level for various, like getting the word out, so maybe some training and some workshops and stuff like that. But unless you have an organization actually absorb the money, you actually have to pass something. So so the vote of the council is really critical. So if it succeeds, then we kind of are under the umbrella of AAS. It becomes kind of we get a stamp of approval, which is really powerful. I mean, that's going to be really important for funding. And if it doesn't succeed, then we'll have to go into maybe forming their own 501c3 non-for-profit to absorb that. But we have some grant opportunities lined up, and so we kind of need an organization to become, to be on board enough to be the one that we go through to get the funding. So we're kind of at a critical phase. So this task force is basically a report out from a task force that got formed at the Hawaii meeting, council, and the task force has been spent the last several months to investigate this, make sure that it makes sense for the society, come up with a proposal, and so that's all being reported out at this meeting with a vote to kind of continue the project. So, and having a non-biased member that was just somebody, a society member that was just had a touch point with Worldwide Telescope, but not really one of the core team members, is really valuable, because there is a sense that it hasn't been used a lot, and so the AAS is a little bit like how can we use it? And so having some unbiased opinions from people like you is very important to communicate this.
Yeah, well, I think that the real strength of it is making research papers more accessible to the public, and because there is a large body of the general public, I think that wants to go to the source of what they're hearing through the through press releases or news stories, but find some of the jargon a bit daunting.
Right,
And so
exactly.
I think that this is absolutely critical, and especially, I mean, for science in general, to be able to, on one hand, not sacrifice the integrity of the information that they're communicating, but also finding new ways to make it more accessible. This has to happen. So
Yeah,
I
and I
think,
think that you can imagine people like taking your video abstract as a PR piece as a starting
Mhm.
point, right? And then press release uses your words or something you put together, so
Oh
it's
yeah, no,
more.
I mean it was better than any. It was as good as the fully funded 5 weeks, prep time NASA press release I had for a paper once. It
Oh,
was
really?
really, really good.
Uh, well, that's a great point. I'll try to keep that as a side. If I'm asked that question, it's also really cost effective. That's the other piece. It's
Yeah.
and because there's less of a gap between the science and the presenter, and the scientist and the person watching it, there's less production. It's just you and me made it, right? We're both scientists, so
Yeah, it was really simple.
yeah, it was simple, and there's less likelihood of some crazy artistic thing that misrepresents the scenario like that. And you're kind of basing it on, well, if Kuiper Belt is like our Kuiper Belt, here's what we know about our Kuiper Belt, and it's kind of scaffolding the knowledge from there. So it's really, like I said, kind of streamlined way to.
Yeah. And I think it did very well in accurately and excessively communicating our results. I've had both experiences with this paper where one of the press blurbs I think accurately communicated the results, but it was tough to digest, and the other one made it accessible, but it was completely wrong. It was like, so the Daily Mail claimed that we found Earth, and it's like, no.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Guys,
right.
no, we haven't. Seriously, no. Just back up. Yeah. So I think these, and because it's, at least in this case, it was a collaboration that I guess some well, not I guess had, but did have an institutional stamp of approval, because this video abstract is attached to the paper. So
Yeah, right.
it has that stamp of approval. This is not, Huffington Post doing their video on a press story on this result. This comes from the source, and I think that is a very advantageous thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point. I mean, yeah, there's just less filters between you as a scientist doing the research and somebody
Absolutely.
watching the video or exploring. The abstract's available as a tour, so people could take that, pan out, see just that huge, how much extreme adaptive optics actually buys you in terms of resolution, can make inferences on their own about what that's going to mean as far as other places, so they can do that on their own by exploring versus just being told.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I hope that this becomes a regular feature of FD letters. Like that they pick out. I mean, maybe this might be a little bit too daunting to do for most papers, but that they can pick a few periodically to have a video abstract. I think it makes the journal unique, and I think that it is very effective for communicating science results.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the plan, is to find a way to kind of operationalize it, to do it with as little effort as possible, but also to have that as a part of the production process somehow.
Yeah, and if people feel intimidated by this or think that this is a little wacky, I mean, 30 years ago, people were still sending in paper copies of manuscripts.
Yeah. Handwritten copies.
Handwritten, yeah. You would acknowledge the person who drew the stars on your figure from the photographic plates. I mean, you got to move on, and this is this and making source code accessible, I think, is the next step.
Yeah, cool. I think that's the plan. So I'll let you know how it all goes, and appreciate your time after the holidays.
Absolutely.
I know it's
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, no problem. I mean, I didn't know this was possible in the first case, but after seeing in the video, how the video abstract works and how the Worldwide Telescope allows you to construct one, I'm a very strong advocate of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, paper number 2, reach out to me and I'll make sure you have another great one.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Okay. Happy holidays.
You too.
Goodbye.